Good evening. The High Court has granted taxi drivers an interim injunction to bar pro-democracy protesters from occupying a section of Nathan Road in Mongkok. This means court bailiffs can enforce the order and clear the area, but it's not known when or if this will happen. The court also issued an injunction against protesters in Admiralty. Demonstrators have been ordered to clear fire exits, emergency vehicle exits and the car park entrance for Citic Tower on Tim May Avenue and Leung Road, opposite government headquarters. They will be in contempt of court if they don't move and could be punished with prison terms. Earlier, the taxi drivers were in Mongkok protesting against the Occupy movement. Emily C reports.
About 20 representatives from the Taxi Drivers and Operators Association were in Mongkok this afternoon to protest against demonstrators who have been blocking one of the city's busiest thoroughfares for weeks now. This driver said they are fed up with having to explain to passengers why they have to take a detour every time they enter Mongkok. Representatives from the Leung Public Light Bus Company applied for a separate injunction to stop the protests. Their lawyer said the livelihood of both minibus drivers and operators has been severely affected. Piling more pressure on the civil disobedience movement, about 400 pro-establishment legislators and district councillors signed a joint declaration this morning, urging occupiers across the city to pack up and go home.
They want to improve Hong Kong to a better life, but instead of going towards this direction, our economy and our daily lives, in particular our ordinary residents, they are so aggrieved, and we truly believe they have good heart to start this, and they can stop it with good heart also.
Financial Secretary John Tsang said today the government will provide assistance to the catering, retail, hotel and transport industries which have taken a hit. But Tsang said he doesn't have enough data yet to assess the overall impact the mass sit-in has had on the city's economy so far. Commerce and Economic Development Minister Greg So warned that the protests are affecting Hong Kong's international business reputation. He pointed out that some foreign investors have changed their minds about doing business here because of the crisis. Hong Kong's sole delegate to the National People's Congress Standing Committee, Rita Fan, said she hopes tomorrow's talks between the government and protesters can help ease tensions in the occupied areas. But she urged students not to use the occasion to call on more to join the mass sit-ins or clash with police, as that would make the talks meaningless.
Pan-Democrats and Occupy protest supporters have lashed out at Chief Executive Leung after he told ATV yesterday that external forces were behind the civil disobedience movement. Ann Cheng reports.
There's been plenty of talk over the past few weeks about Western governments being involved in Hong Kong's civil disobedience movement. While the pan-democratic camp has dismissed and ridiculed it as Communist Party propaganda, others have questioned who is funding the Occupy protests, a concern that will be investigated formally by pro-government lawmakers. Yesterday, for the first time, Chief Executive Leung voiced his concerns about foreign interference, telling ATV that external forces were involved.
We're from different countries in different parts of the world. I shan't go into details, but this is not entirely a domestic movement. No one can now control the movement. I have said that this is a political movement that has got out of hand. It has got out of control even for people who started it, for people who planned it, for people who scripted it.
Federation of Students leader Alex Chow dismissed the chief executive's claims as complete fabrication, coming just ahead of their meeting with government officials tomorrow to start negotiating an end to the crisis. He challenged Leung to produce evidence instead of making irresponsible allegations, suggesting that he was trying to discredit the entire movement to justify a crackdown. Scholarism leader Joshua Wong raised doubts about Leung's sincerity in seeking a peaceful settlement. He posted a sarcastic message online, saying the only way he's connected with foreign forces is through his South Korean mobile phone, his American computer, and his Japanese Gundam action figures, all of which were made in China. Media tycoon Jimmy Lai was also quick to challenge Leung.
I see why Leung, I don't think has any credibility. But to enforce, to prove that what he says has credibility, I think it's very good for him to put out the proof. he even refused to give details. Come on, let's give details. Let's prove it. Let us know. Let us know those evil powers. You know, let's fight the evil powers together. But give us the proof. Give us who is that.
Veteran Democrat Albert Ho accused Leung of trying to add fuel to the fire with unfounded claims.
Maybe he would like to see that people had just forgotten about his own scandal, and that all the public attention would be directed to the escalating conflicts. I think that is very bad.
The U.S. consulate hit back for the first time today, categorically rejecting accusations that it was manipulating any political activity in Hong Kong. What is happening in Hong Kong is about the people of Hong Kong, it said in a written statement. Any assertion otherwise is an attempt to distract from the issue at hand, which is the people of Hong Kong expressing their desire for universal suffrage and an election that provides a meaningful choice of candidates representative of the voters' will. The consulate said American diplomats regularly meet with a broad cross-section of Hong Kong society, and they don't support any particular political party or person. That wasn't convincing enough for the foreign ministry in Beijing today. Everyone has already seen that there are indeed some people, some forces in the world attempting to intervene in the affairs of Hong Kong, put pressure on the developments in Hong Kong, even encourage, instigate, and support illegal activities such as Occupy Central, said spokeswoman Hua Chunying. We resolutely oppose any foreign forces who attempt to intervene in the affairs of Hong Kong in any form. Ann Chang, ATV News.
Some leading pro-democracy figures have dismissed tomorrow's meeting between the government and student leaders as a PR exercise. Emily C reports.
The scene was calm and peaceful in Admiralty on the 23rd day of the Occupy protests that have paralyzed some of the busiest parts of Hong Kong. Some took advantage of the downtime to build a model using Lego figures to depict memorable scenes of the civil disobedience movement. The 25-year-old saleswoman who spent a night putting together the piece says she was inspired by Civic Party activist Ken Zhang, who has accused 7 police officers of taking him into a dark corner of Tamar and beating him up during last week's crackdown. Chief Secretary Carrie Lam and 4 government officials are scheduled to meet student leaders behind the street seizures at 6 p.m. tomorrow. They're supposed to negotiate a solution to the crisis, but most people are not expecting anything concrete to come out of the 2-hour session.
Frankly, I'm not expecting something really progressive because the government has been kind of like flipping around and sloppy in the way that they represent themselves.
Judging from the past experience of the government's attitude, I think they will continue to act in this stern way, but which is what I don't want to see.
If they show me that there's a real timetable for the democracy we are asking for, then I am satisfied. Civil nomination, and then by what time there will be the universal suffrage for the Legislative Council.
I really hope that they can reach agreement so that we can all go back to our lives. I mean, I'm pretty sure no one enjoys to be here.
Media tycoon Jimmy Lai was at the protest base in Admiralty today, expressing mixed feelings about tomorrow's meeting.
The meeting will also give us some energy to go on with this momentum, because if there's going to be disappointment, which I think there will be, and broken promises, and all this will agitate people to come, to come on the street and keep the momentum going.
Veteran Democratic Party lawmaker Albert Ho described the meeting as a publicity stunt for the sake of the international community, so that the government has an excuse to forcibly remove the protesters later on.
Probably because there is a certain directive from Beijing saying that you must go through this exercise. Okay, how can you, just take a tough measure without going through the process of engaging the students in an open dialogue?
Are Hong Kong's Occupy protests out of control? It depends on who you ask, but there's no disputing this much. These people have no intention of getting off the streets anytime soon. The government can get them out by force, and many of them don't even answer to protest leaders, regardless of talks with the government to end the crisis. In another reflection of the mood among Hong Kong's younger generation, Leung University students this afternoon unfurled yellow umbrellas at their graduation ceremony in a show of defiant support for the protest movement. They interrupted former Minister Freddie Ma's speech as he was receiving an honorary degree and got into a short discussion with him about listening to people's views. The students also urged their president, Leonard Zhang, to be fair and impartial when he moderates tomorrow's meeting, as he was previously an advisor to the chief executive during his election campaign.
I must make it very clear and be clear to everyone. It is not my job to make any decision. My job is simply there to facilitate a useful and constructive dialogue.
The scene in Mong Kok was also relatively calm and peaceful throughout the day. Apart from sporadic arguments between protesters and nearby residents who were fed up of their neighborhood being paralyzed by the blockade, officers often had to intervene.
Police have condemned parents who brought their children to last night's rally in Mong Kok in the middle of a standoff between officers and protesters ready for a crackdown. Here's Ann Cheng.
The junction of Argyle Street and Nathan Road was again jammed with protesters, their opponents, and spectators last night. It was relatively peaceful, apart from the occasional arguments and tense moments, as many were expecting a police crackdown after 2 straight nights of clashes. But sightings of parents bringing their children to the protest zone were condemned by police. Officers urged parents to take their children away from what they consider a high-risk area being occupied by increasingly radical protesters. They warned parents they were being irresponsible, in addition to possibly breaching child protection laws by deliberately exposing minors to danger.
Some protesters placed young children in the front rows, facing the police cordon. Some people claimed in the social media that children will be placed under umbrella as human shield. This is extremely irresponsible, selfish, and reckless, and totally unacceptable to the general public.
In response to online rumors that police would clear out the protests, many suited up, adding helmets and cushion shields to their homemade armor. The hard hats replaced umbrellas amid complaints that police have been hitting protesters on the head with batons.
The protesters wore helmets and goggles. Their arms were wrapped with plastic foam. They held umbrellas in their hands and posed to charge police cordons. Although no major confrontation took place, crisis could have been broken out at any moment in that situation.
Another new tactic saw frontline protesters holding up mirrors to show police their own reflections in the hope that they would be more restrained. Others held out props and signs to dissuade the police from using force. But there was no crackdown, and demonstrators remained mostly peaceful throughout the night, apart from a few minor confrontations. This man opposing the protests got into a fight with the crowd. Officers quickly took him away from the scene. At one point, a crackdown seemed imminent as police put on their riot helmets, sparking jeers from the crowd. Labour Party lawmaker Fernando Cheung and Civic Party lawmaker Claudia Mo were there to help ease the tension. Standing between the police and the protesters, Mo urged the crowd to take several steps back and remove their hands from the metal barricades. While some sat down in response to their calls for calm, others ignored them, and those facing off with police stayed put. Cheung said they were there to help keep the peace because they were worried that clashes would affect tomorrow's talks between student leaders and the government. Mo praised police for their cooperation and was happy they had managed to maintain order. Throughout the night, protesters encouraged each other to stay calm. Police later removed their riot gear, and by 3 a.m., half of the force stationed there had left. Ann Cheng, ATV News.
Overseas, 2 of Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's top ministers resigned today over funding and political scandals, throwing his cabinet into turmoil. Ben O'Rourke reports.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe told the United Nations General Assembly last year that women were the key to his country's economic recovery and pledged to create an environment in which women find it comfortable to work and be active in society. He said it was no longer a matter of choice, but was of the greatest urgency, and reinforced his idea in September this year by appointing 5 women to major government positions. But today he might be regretting it, as 2 have resigned, crippling his cabinet and taking some of the polish off his image. First to go is Trade and Industry Minister Yuko Obuchi, who has been under pressure to quit after claims by the opposition Democratic Party that she misused campaign donations and possibly broke election and political funding laws. The 40-year-old has not admitted to doing anything wrong, but said today she didn't want economic or energy policy slowed down by her problems and vowed to clear the allegations. She also apologised for not being able to fulfil Abe's vision of a society where women shine. It's a very sudden fall from grace for a woman who was tipped to possibly become Japan's first female leader. Hours after Obuchi faced the media, Justice Minister Midori Matsushima announced that she too will quit. This comes after the opposition filed a criminal complaint accusing the 58-year-old of violating election laws by giving paper fans, promoting her image and policies to voters. Abe looked cheerful today as he met Facebook guru Mark Zuckerberg in Tokyo. He insists the posts will be filled by tomorrow, but the resignations may not be over. His minister in charge of the North Korean abduction issue, Eriko Yamatani, has been spotted in photographs with members of an ultranationalist group accused of hate speeches against Japan's ethnic Korean community. Abe's first term as Prime Minister ended in 2007 after just 1 year, when he was forced to resign due to scandals involving his ministers. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
Sports news. Andy Murray has boosted his chances of reaching the ATP Tour finals after winning the Vienna Open.